everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. I'll be your astrologer today. Happy Tuesday, everybody. I hope you're doing well. Thank you for joining me. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Click the bell button below so you're alerted to when I have new videos out on the channel. This is going to be my discussion on Mars conjunct the South Node in Libra. I'm calling it Drop It Like It's Hot. Cue the song, even though I can't play it on YouTube, but I'm sure you guys are going to start singing it. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I'm going to be talking all about the effects of this conjunction that'll be taking place really over the next week or so. And this will also be something that I'm going to touch on in my October 2023 horoscope. So we've got the horoscopes coming out on Thursday. That will be dropping. Pun intended. And you guys will be able to see how this is affecting each and every one of the 12 signs. We're still a little ways out from this conjunction, but still some of you guys might be feeling it, all right? So also, if you want to know more about some of the effects with the South Node and these incoming eclipses, check out my website. I do have a link that you can purchase the replay of my fall eclipses webinar. So I touch on the solar eclipse in Libra, the lunar eclipse in Taurus. It's about 3 hours long. Lots of extra goodies and information if you guys want to know how this eclipse season is going to be affecting you. But we do have some videos that are going to come out on that, especially the horoscopes. I will be touching on that there. All right, so drop it like it's hot. Such a good day to be, I think, talking about this particular aspect that's setting up. I kind of waited to do this because I wanted to see a trine between the moon and Mars. And actually the moon is already kind of in harmony as you guys are watching this on Tuesday with the South Node. So we're already kind of in that flow state of like, what are we going to let go of? What are we releasing? This particular conjunction is probably going to be felt anywhere from like the 30th of September through most of mid-October. So this will have a number of effects to it. Not just the Mars South Node conjunction alone. There's going to be several aspects that are going to kind of like perpetuate some of the themes of that conjunction. So yeah, specifically the conjunction itself won't be taking place until closer to the 4th. So let's go ahead and move the clock forward so you guys can see what I'm talking about. And I like to work with about a 2-3 degree orb. So you're going to start feeling this week. All right, so we're going to see the Mars South Node conjunction. It looks like it's going to be taking place at 24 degrees of Libra. And this will be in the early morning hours of October 4th, 2023. All right, so here's the conjunction. There's the South Node in Libra. There's Mars. Now, in astrology, conjunction is the strongest aspect that you can see. It's essentially when you have two planets or 2 points that are fusing together. We have a stellium of planets, technically 2 planets, but a stellium of placements in Libra. Pallas, which is talking about fairness and balance and patterns. The sun, which talks about our desires, also our egos, and it's shining a light on relationship themes. And then we've got Mars, which is technically in its fall in the sign of Libra. So we've got Mars going through a Venusian sign where it's harder for it to express its natural kind of energies, right? So we've got Mars in a sign that's about beauty and diplomacy and harmony, and it's going to come into conjunction with the South Node. Now, we only see this particular aspect, the Mars South Node conjunction, roughly once every 18 months, depending on our retrograde cycles. But you guys are not going to see Mars in conjunction to the South Node again for the duration of the South Node in Libra, North Node in Aries. You are also not going to see this conjunction again, most likely until the next time that we're having this in like 18, 19 years. I haven't even really looked at that cycle yet because it's so far out. But essentially, you know, because the North Node is in Aries, we really want to be getting into the habit of being in tune with where Mars is going in the skies. This is going to be one of those periods where it can be a bit bittersweet. On one hand, we can tap into the past of the South Node. On the other hand, we have the potential for falling into those patterns. And there can be a sense of also needing to release or let something go. Now, I think that's kind of the themes of October as we come into planets on the South Node, eclipses as well. We're going to see a solar eclipse in Libra. So we want to think of releasing and like letting things kind of fall away. But Mars is a planet that is inherently hot, right? It's kind of spicy. So that's why I'm calling this Drop It Like It's Hot. I'm encouraging everybody to really be paying attention where some of these hot-headed tendencies are coming up, where some of these lazy tendencies are kind of coming up, because Libra can have a shadow side, as can all the signs that can be about, jealousy or laziness or overindulgence. That can definitely kind of come up here. So if you're looking to kind of cut away bad relationship habits, if you're looking to cut away indecisiveness, this is definitely the time to get ready to do that. Now, the conjunction, like I said, will be at 24 degrees. So, when we look at this, I want to talk to you guys first about degree theory, and then I will read you my Sabian symbols. Because it's almost like the more that I went into the list, the laundry list of things that are associated with 24 degrees, which is also a Pisces degree in degree astrology, the more that my eyes got bigger and bigger and bigger. All right, so just stay with me, because some of these, you might even pick up some things that I don't even talk about. So I like to use degree theory because it gives me a little bit of an extra oomph. So when we think about Mars, action, drive, passion, desire, Libra, relationships, but Libra is also about balance. It's about fairness. It can be about also the air element. So what's in the air, or relationship quarrels being in the air. But 24 degrees is a Pisces degree, so it has some kind of connection with Jupiter as well as Neptune. Now, when we see 24 degrees, there can be themes revolving around deception, poisoning, things that are unclear, fake things, illusions, glasses and mirrors, criminals, things that pertain to swimming or being near or in water, fish, things that are disguised, drug and alcohol, CCTV or video, fog, oil, things that go missing, rains, floods, things that are out of focus, foreigners, painters, people who are crying, waterfalls, ponds, large body of waters, shoes, mattresses, beds, to sleep or to hide, right? All these kind of Neptunian things. So we could look at this through the lens of Libra. Where are we experiencing deception in relationships? Are we feeling like our relationships are a bit toxic, or there's some sense of having not having a lot of clarity when it comes to the balance in regards to our relationships with other people? But I definitely am curious about things revolving around poisons, especially things that can be poisonous to our kidneys, things that can be poisonous to the air. I'm also really curious about how this is potentially going to be bringing up some waterworks for some people who are just processing a wide range of emotions, which can include anger relating to previous relationships. Certainly things that have been hidden can now come to light, and whether this is hidden motives or, secrets in some capacity. Maybe some of us are feeling like we're just a little bit more sensitive and more willing to kind of share with other people where our feelings have been hurt and where we have some of these pent-up emotions that are leading to like displaced anger. I mean, we can be projecting that onto other people. I think you guys might have seen in my previous videos that I said there's going to be a lot of issues with projection during Libra season. So this is kind of the beginning of that. Now Mars, which is a masculine planet, it does deal with men, it does deal with military, but it also deals with cutting, burning, fighting, arguing, war, passion, desire, and motives. So when planets come into contact with the South Node, there is this feeling of like a lessening of power, right? So we might feel like certain relationships have less power over us. Maybe we are feeling like we are less likely to want to have conflict, to fight. We might be feeling less likely also to just want to roll over and take it, right? Because Libra can be a sign that definitely deals with like people pleasing. So we might notice that there's a little bit of like reflecting on where things in relationships aren't really working because we've had a tendency to kind of like let people get away with things. And then we start to kind of realize where that ongoing process in relationships is really doing ourselves a disservice. Mars is the dispositor also of the North Node and Chiron in Aries, where we are really focusing on healing our own wounds. Now, the Sabian symbol specifically for this particular degree would be the 25th degree of Libra, which is the sight of an autumn leaf brings the sight of an autumnal leaf brings to a pilgrim the sudden revelation of the mystery of life and death. Okay, so let me read to you guys that. I had it in front of me. So the theme here would be, or the keyword would be tact, and the theme would be revelation. The symbol speaks to the imagination and the ability to understand subtle messages in all things and events through a sensitivity to patterns. The image of information in the symbol of an autumn leaf emphasizes importance of observation and paying attention to detail. The suggestion here is that intelligence is basically the capacity to understand how things can be used to achieve the desired ends and benefit the self and others. The emphasis is on the degree of understanding the mutual and necessary interdependentness of man and the world. At its highest, it represents adaptability, intuition, a natural ability to see beyond surface appearances and comprehend the ultimate meaning and purpose of things, on an unwavering commitment to the highest good in all situations. Watch for a tendency to get lost in the details and lose perspective of foolish flights of fancy. The accent is on interpretation. Translating information from one medium or language to another may require your attention. Your greatest advantage lies in focusing your objective and being diplomatic and getting your message across. Guard against believing that something is too difficult to understand, then it's more important or has value. Avoid confusing others with irrelevant details or talking about things they can't relate to or have no interest in. Observing patterns, I mean, for me is probably a big thing because we've got Palace here as well. I think about transcending the fear of death and embracing beauty and wisdom that can be found in the natural world. And that this is a symbol that encourages contemplation and reflection of the interconnectedness of all things. The power of transformation cycles, right? So maybe it means that we are starting to kind of tap into some of these like psychic patterns. Maybe it can be messages. Maybe we're starting to see things repeating themselves, stuff from the past that's coming back up, obviously with the connection to the South Node. But I think that, you know, when we look at Libra season, at least here in the Northern Hemisphere, this is when the leaves start to fall, the seasons start to change. We start to realize that it's a pattern of kind of like letting something go as we prepare for Scorpio season. So much of the Mars South Node conjunction for me is about cutting away or releasing something. And so I think that that's where I would focus. Obviously, it's going to be different for all of you guys, so you're going to want to take a look at exactly where this is happening, which house is it happening in. That's where you are experiencing some sense of reflecting on the past or maybe letting something go. This is going to be much affected. The signs that are going to be the most affected, or the placements that are going to be the most affected, will be 23 to 25 degrees of Libra. So if you are 23 to 25 degrees Libra, sun, moon, or rising, or if you have a personal planet there, you're going to be feeling this the most. Same thing with the cardinal signs. If you have planets or angles within those degrees, so Cancer, Libra, Aries, and Capricorn, you guys are all going to be feeling that. And then also Aries and Scorpio risings, you guys are going to be feeling this pretty strongly because Mars is your ruling planet. So it's going to be different for both of you guys. Obviously, Aries is pretty obvious where this is going to be taking place. It's going to be happening more in regards to your relationships with other people. Scorpio, it's going to be taking place for you in your 12th house. So this is going to be really connected to some kind of karma and relationships as well, and something that you don't see coming. Anyway, stay tuned. We'll talk about that on Thursday. Now, the South Node in general, when we see contacts here with the South Node, for me, this is about release and transformation because the South Node represents what we've already mastered, where we've already been, and it also signifies what you need to release and move away from in order to get to where you want to go in this lifetime. Now, even if your South Node's not in Libra, you really still benefit from paying attention to what's going on because the nodal changes still do impact us, with the house that it's in for about 18 months at a time. So if you are really focusing on trying to receive all of the goodness from the North Node in Aries, if you're trying to initiate new things, if you're focusing more on independence, if you're focusing more on maybe your body or health, this is an important piece of the puzzle because there is something to be said about the North Node ruler being conjunct the South Node. It almost means that we have to clean house right now in order to be able to receive all of the goodies for when Mars goes through Capricorn, which it's exalted in the new year, when we see Mars go through Aries in the spring next year, and we have some eclipses and it's going to be a fresh new energy. This is the season of letting go. That's really what this is going to be about. So with the conjunction between Mars and the South Node, it's really important that you're paying attention to what old patterns you're willing to release. These could be potentially aggressive. There can be a sense of being impulsive and reckless and kind of heated, especially because that's what Mars is associated with. Now, all of these placements are still connected to Venus, and Venus is also in a fire sign, although Mars and Venus are in harmony, so that's nice. It is kind of saying that some of the conflict that's kind of coming up might be it might be connected to whether or not our heart is in something, okay? So it can be a relationship, it can be a job, it can represent some kind of conflict in relationships revolving around our own needs to kind of really focus on our happiness and our self-love first. And that seems to be a big piece of why certain relationships or partnerships or long-standing goals are no longer kind of sticking. Now, something I see a lot with South Node conjunctions is repetitive behaviors. That's definitely a theme. So if you catch yourself repeatedly encountering situations or challenges related to Mars themes, such as aggression, competitiveness, desires, these situations can feel familiar as if you have focused on them in past lifetimes. In particular, I would say the Mars-South Node conjunction in Libra feels less like war, more like passionate love stories from the past, people who we had these strong kind of connections with, where we are kind of going round and round and kind of playing out some of the same traumas in this particular lifetime. So many of you guys have seen my videos for some time. I'm not really a fan of talking about twin flames and soulmate stuff. That's not my bag. But I do feel like with the shadow of the Venus retrograde wrapping up and with the Mars conjunct the South Node, it is out there. There is definitely a lot of karmic relationship stuff that is kind of going on right now. And whether that's, some relationships ending and some people are clocking out, or other people are just kind of showing up to kind of help you in regards to growth in relationships, but also growth when it comes to personal happiness and desire. I think that that's going to be a huge key. I don't want to take away from the fact that the North Node is in Aries. And so part of what we're going to see throughout this eclipse cycle and this transit is going to be where we're realizing that certain relationships are falling away. We're outgrowing certain relationships. And, I was talking recently, I just did a video with Lori from Lunatic Astrology, and we were talking about with the South Node Mars conjunction. And I said, yeah, it's kind of like if you love something, let it go. That in some ways, the truest form or act of love can be setting someone or something free, especially if you know that relationship may be self-limiting. It may not be the best for either party involved to continue to stay in that cycle, and learning to kind of set something or someone free with love. That has been the lesson all along. Not fighting the inevitable, not getting, stuck up in the power struggles, because we're going to see that with aspects to Pluto, and learning to finally put an end to some of these karmic cycles where we have created karma in past lives, which is why we're kind of, playing this out now, if you believe in that stuff. So watch for that stuff that might be popping up. I also believe it can be a really powerful time for instinctive actions, because this conjunction definitely brings that to a head. There can be a tendency to act instinctively, and it can be driven by past behaviors and experiences. You might find that you're naturally gravitating towards certain activities or ways of asserting yourself without consciously thinking about it. So there can be this sense of you notice this really strong impulse to start, creating art, making art, or painting, drawing, designing, all these Libra things. It might, bring out the inner artist in some people. It might bring out the inner social activist. That's definitely Mars in Libra. It may also get people really conscious and aware of bringing the right people into your orbit. And, you know, Libra is not just about spouses and committed relationships. It can be, lawyers and your astrologer. It can be your therapist, people who come in to help counsel you, to coach you, to guide you. So some of you guys might have people kind of popping into your life who are here to encourage you, to get you on the path of where you need to go, to become the person that you are here to become, right? North Node in Aries. So watch for that as well. Now for me, when I have like a master list of my aspects, aside from the fact that, like I said, the North Node ruler is conjunct the South Node, reflecting on the past, wrapping it up in some way in order to move forward. So if we're meant to be doing bigger, better things here in this next year, especially in the spring, then there is a need to kind of like cut with, break with, you know, remove, dispose of things that are not serving our highest good now. And guess what, guys? Just like in some relationships, sometimes a little bit of conflict, a little bit of friction can actually be a good thing. It can clear the air. We think of Mars as a fire sign or a fire planet, but it's in an air sign. So there's going to be lots of like debates. There's going to be lots of going back and forth and trying to see somebody else's perspective and kind of feeling a little bit of caught in the middle. That can definitely come up. And Libra is a sign that sometimes deals with diplomacy, but it's also about being indecisive. And so I think that there can be like a sense of feeling like torn or between a rock and a hard place with whether or not you stay in the past or if you move forward. And you might feel like there's some friction where some patterns, some people, some situations just don't want to let you go, or vice versa. And you have to ask yourself, am I staying in this because it's comfortable? Am I staying in this because I think that love has to be hard, that it has to be confrontational, that, you know, fighting for somebody or for something, you know, that is love. So much of the North Node in Aries is about allowing us to go our own way. And in many ways, in relationships especially, giving our partners enough rope to go and do their thing and experience freedom. And if they do, for whatever reason, fall out of line, then it may more or less like hang themselves, right? So I think that that's how you want to look at relationships right now, that they need to be given the freedom to do what they need to do, and relationships can continue, and you can fall out of, you know, feeling too codependent, you know, being stuck to each other like Velcro. As long as you're going and doing your own independent work, relationships can maintain. But the ones that are maybe holding you back, or there's some conflict if you want more independence, or if you're wanting to kind of define things on your own, those might be the relationships that you're trying to work your way out of. Now, like I said, on October 4th, that's when this particular transit perfects. And what piqued my interest is on this day, we're going to see the moon in Gemini. So it's prompting and promoting communication, ideas, sharing, media, anything in regards to print or social media or documents, paperwork. Mercury will be the planet that is associated with the moon, just having come out of an opposition with Neptune where there's been some miscommunication, but it's going to find itself in a very powerful trine to Pluto. So words have power. They have the ability to change, to transform. We are feeling empowered by the information that we're sharing and being of service and helping other people. And the moon is going to be making several aspects, both to not just the sun, but more so early in the morning, but also to Mars and the South Node. So you're going to see this later in the day in like the late afternoon PM hours. The moon trine Mars is basically getting us to communicate, share, act assertively, write assertively, send that email, tell somebody what we think, and it's going to really activate this Mars South Node. So if you tell somebody, I'm done, I'm cutting this off, no more, this ends here, it's really going to pack, I think, quite a powerful punch. And we're also starting to see with the with this particular aspect that there's two sides of the same coin, right? Because Gemini represents duality. So while we're looking at the air trines, which is about communication and information, I think the moon being in Gemini is going to be about some significant news, right? The trines to Mars and the South Node, about someone or some significant issue, some significant person issuing a statement of a split separation or a lawsuit. or cutting something, removing something. So we might see something on the news about, so-and-so is announcing that they're separating or divorcing, or so-and-so is announcing I'm leaving this news platform, or I'm quitting, or I no longer want to work with this organization. We might hear some significant news in regards to the legal world as well. Now, Mars is just beginning to come into a square with Capricorn, so it's not just a typical Mars conjunct the South Node aspect. Mars is then going to start building into a square with Pluto, which is challenging for those in power. It is, all about top-down structures, and the people who are going to be fighting the good fight in Libra are going to be the activists. They are going to be the lawyers and the judges and the people who are connected to law, whether or not they're still upholding some sense of law and balance. We think of Libra as the scales, but it's also connected to justice, right? So is it going to be something in regards to a Supreme Court justice hearing? Is it going to be something in regards to, freedom and balances? I don't know. I'm hoping that this is a positive thing, because what Mars in Libra really does teach us, especially with the South Node conjunction, is we have powerful allies that are coming back to us from past lives or from past situations. Dare I say even like some people that owe us a favor. So if you're feeling like you're in a position where you're like, I just really need someone to show up and help me fight the good fight, you may find that the right people kind of show up at the right time to help stand and be an ally. Nevertheless, the Mars-Pluto square, it's a gnarly one, especially because this is a closing square. Down the road, we're going to see Mars and Pluto come into conjunction. And I can't remember if that's exactly in Capricorn or if it's going to be in Aquarius. I think the conjunction is going to be right at the end of Capricorn, the beginning of Aquarius. Let me look. For me, that kind of makes a difference. Yeah, it's going to be in Aquarius. So when the new Mars-Pluto cycle starts again, it's going to be at 0 degrees. So this will be in mid-February of next year. Okay. Anyway, but that's still kind of significant because it's going to be a fixed sign at 0 degrees. We keep seeing that 0 degrees of Aquarius that keeps popping up over and over, primarily because that's the grand conjunction degree where we are really moving forward, I think towards more of a Uranian type of future. Some say it's going to be the age of Aquarius. Others believe that it's going to be more about learning to come together and working together and everybody kind of being on an equal playing field. But the Mars-Pluto square is going to be taking place just days later. And I feel like that's also going to be more breakdown that you're going to be seeing, both in regards to the legal system and government, but also relationships and power struggles within those relationships. Something else that I have noted here is that Mars is going to be the apex, meaning it's going to be the focal point of a yod right here. Okay, so we've got Neptune and Uranus sextiling each other. Both are retrograde. So while Neptune is doing all of the work in secrecy and clouding and hiding things and things that are kind of suppressed or misunderstood or hidden, Uranus is retrograde and it's doing a lot of work in regards to revamping, reworking, breaking down, changing in some way values, resources, physical things, and the financial system. So these two are working side by side. Neptune is meant to dissolve things. So collectively, we're going through a big dissolving period. And then with the sextile to Uranus, it's like where our self-undoings or us not being checked in or not being aware could quite literally lead to some of like the more chaotic things that could be going on physically with our resources and just economically in general. So when we have Mars, which in conjuncts both Taurus and Pisces, which is a fancy word for saying Pisces and Taurus don't have much in common with Libra, other than the fact that Taurus and Libra are both ruled by Venus. They don't make a traditional harmonious aspect. It's almost like a blind spot. But when you have a planet in the apex of this particular aspect that is hitting two different planets at the same time, it's almost saying like, hey, pay attention to this event right here. Pay attention to what relationships are falling apart. Pay attention to what is being removed, what's being cut, what's being severed. Because that Mars South Node conjunction is more or less saying, we're going to remove this. We're going to take this out of your life. We're going to bring this thing or take this thing away from you that is not bringing balance and harmony and diplomacy. It might be we're clearing the karmic decks. It might be we're removing a relationship out of your life suddenly and you didn't see it coming, but it's because it may not be serving your greater good. They may not be honest. There may be some form of deception. Now, Mars in conjunct Neptune, I think I'm going to double down on that because, it can be something that's not healthy for you. Neptune is actually 6 signs away from Libra. So it can be something that might bring illness or something that might bring bad habits, issues also pertaining to your emotions. And then Mars is going to in conjunct Uranus. So this is something revolving around energy. This is something revolving around technology, something that also might not bring you physical security. I've talked a lot about how I think the Saturn-Uranus squares we've had in recent years and also the in conjuncts between Libra and Taurus is showing us you can have money in a bank account. That does not necessarily mean it's secure. You can have a rich spouse, but that does not necessarily mean that you have stability because you never know when like a bank account or a partner is going to like run out. So what we're learning here is not putting our faith or our stock in false security. Right? People, possessions, resources, what have you. And it's really showing us when you strip away things that are superficial, right? South Node in Libra. When you take away the job, when you take away the hair extensions, the false eyelashes, the nails, the money, the house, the car, are you feeling secure and complete with that relationship? Do you love that person even if they were not to have everything? And vice versa. You might look at some relationships with people that have stuck by you when you had nothing, and then, you come up and then you realize like, wow, they were with me for the right reasons. So there's gonna be a lot of stuff going on right now where we're gonna start to see superficial things stripped away and whether or not relationships stand by our side. Partners, friends, attorneys, counselors, groups. I mean, it's gonna be different for all of you guys. But that Mars in conjunct Uranus can be a bit of a dangerous aspect because it can represent something that is not seen. And if the support doesn't come through, then it can have some pretty significant physical and financial effects. The point is, let certain things go, okay? When this Mars South Node conjunction happens, personally, I can't tell you exactly when it's gonna happen. I can give you a window of when I think this is gonna take place. But when this situation happens where that person from the past comes back, or maybe you're at a turning point with whether or not you leave a job or a partner or a bad habit behind, drop it like it's hot. That's what you want to remind yourself. Keep telling yourself that, right? Because this is about cutting something loose. Now, this also, I feel like out in the world is going to be where some legal fights, some lover spats, some arguments or imbalances are necessary to reveal what both Neptune and Uranus retrograde are really doing and hiding behind the scenes. Now, it'll be on the 7th that we're going to see Mars come into the square with Pluto. So too long didn't listen. You're probably going to see about the 3rd through the 15th. Okay, so October 3rd through the 15th. I know that's a big window, but there's a lot of different aspects. That's when you're going to be faced with this, oh, shift, I have to, cut this thing off vibe. This is when Mars starts squaring Pluto. And what we're going to see, because this is going to be at 27 degrees, and this is going to get activated because of the moon, but it'll be 27 degrees that the square will be happening at on the 7th. I think it's going to be legal disputes revolving around freedom of speech. I'll just go out and just leave it at that. I think that's really what it's going to be. And whether or not it's being upheld in the court system, in the legal system, and whether or not there's going to be potentially some historic court cases that might be coming up revolving around these things. But I also believe this is going to be highlighting the desire for balance versus the need for control. We've got Pluto in a sign that's very powerful. Like it or not, Pluto in Capricorn is at the top of this chart, so it basically does not want to give up that power. Pluto's retrograding in and out of Capricorn still for another year. So we're going to hear like this death rattle that's going to be going on where, you know, those at the top are really doing everything possible to kind of hold on to it as Pluto dips into Aquarius, where there is the potential for a global revolution, where people are waking up and realizing that we are all one. Now, Mars square Pluto is also going to be bringing up the transformation through conflict. So there can be some need for tapping into the power struggle. It's really creating some change in certain relationships so we can actively work through conflict. But with Mars-Pluto squares, there is this energy release. It's like an eruption. It reminds me of when we had, you know, the Uranus squares. So I think we saw like Uranus and Aries when it was squaring off with Pluto, if you guys remember that. Eris was involved, so that was part of it. But, you know, I think about like 2020, and we had a Mars retrograde in Aries, and it was squaring the same point. So something about this is reminiscent of when we had those periods of time where there was major, just outcry for, you know, what was and was not fair. If I remember correctly, that was when we were seeing all the Black Lives Matter protests. So I think we may see some similar things that are kind of coming up, but this is going to be more about relationships with government structures and overreach of power. Nevertheless, Pluto-Mars squares can be dangerous. They can be very action-packed, and it can definitely be bringing up the theme of danger. 27 degrees is going to be in regards to traveling, transportation, the dangerous words. You're going to hear people talking about the danger of words. So that's why I think it's going to have to deal with free speech. Then on the 10th, we're going to see Mars oppose. So Mars is going to come into conjunction. Mars is going to hit 29 degrees. There we go. So it'll hit 29 degrees. And this is really important for a number of reasons. One is that this is going to be hitting the opposition point from the Aries solar eclipse that we had in April. So if you think back to the eclipse that we had at 29 degrees of Aries, okay, that was here. We were planting new seeds revolving around our goals. There was some kind of personal self-crisis that kind of started up. Well, now we have Mars that's opposing that. So it's not just that we're coming into eclipse season, it's that now we're having activations from that last eclipse. And oppositions are relational. So where we were really focusing on our own personal goals, the opposition of Libra is going to be showing where there's conflict, pushback, challenges with other people revolving around being able to achieve those goals. So you're going to see that kind of pipe up again. And this is where intentions, you know, set are, like I said, coming full circle. Now in the background, Venus has, you know, been, you know, just recently coming out of retrograde. She is going to be ending her shadow here pretty soon. And she won't be leaving shadow until she hits about 29 degrees. So that's going to be right around here on October 8th. But this is important also because, you know, Venus, you know, leaving the shadow period, you're going to see some really significant things. You're going to see some finales that are taking place with topics such as Ukraine, Lahaina in Hawaii, and, you know, President Trump. As a result of those particular charts getting highlighted. I believe it's like Ukraine's sun is 29 degrees of Leo. It has to do with, I think, Lahaina's sun or their natal Venus retrograde, which is in Virgo, but it's a part of the same cycle, and Trump's ascendant. So likely when Venus moves to this degree, we're going to see all of this stuff kind of hitting a climax, and we start to kind of hear more about some of these topics that were held back. And Venus deals with not just with relationships, but it's about money, resources, and it's in a sign that deals with leaders. Leo is leaders. So we're going to be hearing about what leaders are having to say about these topics. So these are going to be people who are going to be front and center because Venus turned retrograde along these pivotal degrees. It is conjunct Regulus, you know, fixed star Regulus, which is the mark of a king, but it can also come with some very significant public downfall. So I'm really curious to see what that downfall is, who are the leaders or the people who have been, you know, put in the position in the spotlight, and whether or not they're rising to the occasion, or if we're going to see Venus do her thing and remove their public support. Now, 29 degrees of any sign, right? It doesn't matter if it's Mars or Venus, is the final degree, and it's considered anaretic. This comes from the Greek word anareta, which is a destructive force. So when a planet hits 29 degrees, what it does is it destroys anything that's not real, okay? So first we're gonna see this with Venus, so anything that's not real, that's not valuable, anything that's not perhaps loyal. I think, you know, Leo is very loyal. And then we're gonna see Mars hit 29 degrees right here. So what you want to be watching for is the fact that, you know, this is a signature energy that's kind of like Pluto. So it can destroy certain things, and misuse of destructive energy can lead to, you know, points of no return, where certain things come up and it's like there's no coming back from that, whether it's something somebody says or something that is done. And we're really going to be aware of destructive forces, okay? What is destructive in relationships? What is destructive also in government and when it comes to leadership? Now, destructive forces are not always malefic. I think it's important to mention that. It can be good in a sense. It can bring some kind of clarity and purification and purging. This Venus at 29 kind of reminds me of like Kali, the archetype of like destroying everything, but it's also about creating life. So where we've destroyed certain things to bring new things in. Now, just after we have this particular ingress of Venus, Mars hits 29, it activates the eclipse point, and Venus comes into an opposition with Saturn. So this is the time that you guys want to be watching for, right around the 10th. Because this is going to represent the finale of the Venus retrograde. Those of you guys who have been back and forth all like summer long, whether or not you let something or someone go, Venus in its fall and Mars hitting 29 degrees, this is where shift hits the fan. Now the positive, because there is positive, is that throughout this period, we do see Mars and Venus in aspect to one another. They're sextiling each other. So the more that we're tapping into Venus and Leo, what our heart wants, what our inner child wants, what's going to make us happy, what makes our heart sing, trines to Chiron, how we're healing the inner child, how we are healing and protecting children, trines to the North Node, how we are fighting for the things that we love. We're protecting life, right? Creativity, independence, women. The more that we are going to see some people kind of tap in and channel their inner warrior, South Node in Mars in Libra, and where they are a warrior for diplomacy, for peace, for peaceful resolution. I think that's a huge theme. We've talked about how all of these planets in opposition to Aries show us where we do have the ability to be kind to other people, tap into what other people need, and potentially avoid war out in the world, but also in our own lives. Keep in mind throughout this aspect, Mars is going to in conjunct Neptune, so there can be a sense of not reading people's actions clearly, not knowing the full story, not getting all of the answers, and just kind of like blowing up on someone. So we want to make sure that we're aware of all of the facts before we react. Venus has been in a conjunction, Venus has been in retrograde and has been in an extended square to both Jupiter and Uranus. And for me, this has been bringing up a lot of really interesting things about content creators and independent creators, and lots of challenges in regards to funding their creative processes, right? Because Jupiter and Uranus are kind of shaking things up in Taurus. We have been seeing, I mean, I can only say so much, but let me leave it at this. There are some content creators that are losing their platforms and they are becoming demonetized because what they are creating about, what they are speaking about, what they are sharing is not agreeing with the mainstream narrative, which in turn is affecting their monetization and their ability to get paid for what they're creating. So we've got Uranus, which represents groups, Taurus, that are well-funded. It can also be tech, and the square between the two has been where there's been conflicts with creatives and getting paid. So I think that, it's interesting to finally see this kind of break away, and I've seen a number of really interesting situations where so many people are switching platforms. They're going to Rumble, or they're trying to find other ways of being able to band together and put out their content. So I don't know. What do you guys think about that, about creatives that have been doing that? And do you feel like it's fair that they're not being allowed to continue to make a living because certain, powers that be don't necessarily agree with the topics that they're talking about or what they're creating on? Now, what has happened with this is that they have decided to break up their relationships or their partnerships with some individuals and go elsewhere, or maybe just, split in terms of going off and doing their own thing. It's definitely been interesting to see like Tucker Carlson do that in recent months in light of some of these squares, to go off and do something more independent and break away from, organization that he worked for so long. I think the other takeaway for me is obviously where relationships are not in balance. And many of us might be finding that the frustration that's coming up for us is because we are outgrowing other relationships in some way. And this is going to be really hard to ignore throughout this entire next couple of week period. We might be releasing relationships that we've been keeping for the sake of appearances, surface reasons, fair weather friends, partners, therapists that we've been with for so long. We might be realizing that it's time for us to kind of take a step back and think about what is it we want to become on a personal level, right, Aries? And where there may be a difficult time because there are clients, or because there are friends, or because there are partners, and certain people may not want to let them go. Not that they don't want to see them grow, but they may feel threatened because they're no longer going to them for support or for advice. Finding constructive ways to deal with anger and frustration, right? That's the big takeaway for me. Transmuting it, trying to be compassionate, understanding as to where other people are coming from. For me, I look at this and I'm like, you know what? Anger really has the ability to make us smaller. But if we're able to practice forgiveness, forgiveness forces us to grow beyond who we are. It's such a powerful thing to be able to say, I'm sorry, I was wrong. Forgive me. I feel like this is something that, like we were taught when we were younger, to apologize when we hurt somebody, to apologize when we say something that we don't mean, when we act out aggressively, to recognize that it's wrong and that we are hurting another person. So the key here, the key words that you want to be focusing on are kindness, compassion, empathy, understanding, diplomacy, self-awareness. I saw a post on Twitter this week that gave me a little bit of hope for humanity. It was kind of sad, but this is more of the kind of stuff that I think we need to be seeing out on the internet. Somebody was posting saying that they got into like a tiff with somebody on the roadway. I think somebody cut somebody off, and they were yelling at each other and they exchanged words, and somebody followed them into a gas station. So the angry driver follows him to the gas station. He parks and he's shaking his fist at him and yelling obscenities, and the guy's like, why are you angry? Is everything okay? And he's just like, I don't want to have some conflict with somebody at a gas station. Goes inside to pay for his gas, gets his stuff. When he comes back outside, there's a note on his car. And the car is written in like the note is written in like chicken scratch, and it was left on his windshield, and it says, I'm sorry, I just lost my mom. My emotions are all over the place. Deep apologies. Please forgive me. And I was like, wow. Like the truth is that you never really know what somebody else is going through. And with the North Node in Aries right now, people are so pissed off. They're so angry. Everybody's frustrated at the state of the world. Everybody is just constantly throwing that energy back into the collective. Now, some might say that's what happens when the North Node's in Aries until we learn how to channel it and work with it constructively. But other people might look at it and go, no, it's not so much that. It's that is what's being put out into the world. We're getting hit with this every day. We're getting slimed with anger for a number of different reasons. But as I've said in previous videos, everything is a derivative of love or fear. So what you want to be asking yourself is, which lane am I going to be in today? Because if it doesn't feel like love, it's going to be anger, fear, frustration, vindictiveness, jealousy, all of those other emotions that we don't want to deal with. What was it? I have a quote here from, obviously, Buddha. The Buddha Buddha says, holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one that gets burned. And that's why I said we want to drop it like it's hot. As soon as those things start coming up for you, you start getting angry, you start getting frustrated, observe what emotions are coming up. The anger is coming up for a reason, for you to recognize, hey, hi, this is a signal, this isn't working, red flag, what do we need to do about this? How can we release this? How can we transmute this pain, right? This anger, this frustration. And if you're already good on that level, then this is about you being able to do this for people out in the world and trying to take time to stop, take a breath, not take things personally, and realize that we don't know what other people are going through, but small acts of kindness and awareness can make all the difference in helping turn somebody else's day around and not being combative and being somebody who can be an ally and can support them. That's going to have a ripple effect out in the world to everybody else. I keep thinking about just like some of the people that I've been listening to and watching the most in recent, I would say, months, like the last year or so. A lot of them are Aries moons, and maybe I'm biased, my moon's in Aries. But I have found that I've been so drawn to some of these people who get so worked up and heated and excited and like over the top and really loud, and those are the qualities of Aries moons. But these are the people that you guys want to be possibly listening to and paying attention to, because these are the people who are going to be showing you that there's great deals of emotion and passion, but also anger that comes up that pushes them to acknowledge where there is a lot of room for growth emotionally, okay? Because Aries is the baby of the zodiac. So we're learning that to some extent, our moods are all over the place because we haven't learned how to properly kind of manage them or how to deal with them. This is one for my conspiracy theory friends. So this is something that I've been kind of like looking at for the last month or so that kind of gave me the heebie-jeebies. On the 4th of October, okay, and you can go look this up. On the 4th of October at 2:20 p.m. Eastern Time, there's supposed to be a 1-minute test alert on cell phones, radios, and TVs that are going to be put out by FEMA. So FEMA is going to roll out a national alert test. Apparently, it might be starting at 2:18 p.m. And this will be a national wireless alert system. Now, apparently all cell phones, TVs, and radio will be interrupted with this alert. It's going to send out a high frequency signal. Honestly, there's a variation of information on the internet. Some people are saying it's going to only go for 2 minutes. Other people are saying it could go for up to 30 minutes. But I found this interesting considering the fact that we have 12 degrees. So the day that we're starting to see this conjunction separating, okay, we have a Mars South Node conjunction. We are also going to be seeing a trine. Okay, so Moon trine Mars can quite literally be something about Moon in Gemini, phones, electronics, trine to Mars, tapping into fear, tapping into, responses, agitation, aggression. I think anybody, even if they know it's a test, is probably going to be like a little unnerved by this, right? Just given some of the themes of FEMA in recent months. But that moon is going to also square Neptune, and it's also going to square Mercury. Oh, hi, Mercury at 29, crisis, something that could potentially be Pluto-like. Now, if you guys remember when I was giving you the list of the 12 degrees, right, that Nicola's list, one of the things on there was CCTV, or video. And I went, well, what is CCTV? I don't know what that is. Let me go and look it up. So I looked it up, and it's closed circuit television, also known as video surveillance. The use of video cameras to transmit a signal to a specific place on a limited set of monitors. It differs from broadcast television, and it's not the signal that is openly transmitted, although it may employ a point-to-point, multi-point, or mesh-wired wireless link. Even though most all video cameras fit this definition, the term is most often applied for surveillance in areas required for additional security and ongoing monitoring. Surveillance of the public using CCTV is common in many areas around the world. Video surveillance has generated significant debate about balancing its use with individuals' rights to privacy within the public. Okay, call me a conspiracy theorist, right? But we got a Mars South node that is activating something in regards to what may actually not be legal. South node Mars, action that's taken that may actually take away from people's legal ability to do things. It's going to quincunx Neptune, which can be also a bit deceptive or something that is beneath the radar. And it's going to quincunx Uranus, which can quite literally deal with frequencies and things relating to bodies. Well, in recent weeks, we've heard about like France that's outlawing one of the iPhones because of radiation issues. We're hearing more and more about people realizing the effects of cell phones and radiation issues. But something about this really kind of rubs me personally the wrong way. And so I've gone down a bit of like a rabbit hole, and I have personally made the decision because I'm not liking the conjunction, the inconjuncts. I'm not liking the Mars in opposition to Neptune. I'm not liking a lot of the aspects, that I'm going to follow the directions of a lot of other people who are well researched on frequencies and technologies and other things. And I'm going to be making the decision to unplug, turn off, and stash away all of my electronic devices. Keep in mind, this will go through television sets, this will go through cell phones, this will go through radios. I made the decision to do that. They're saying that it's going to take place on the 4th. In the off chance it does not take place on the 4th, they have scheduled this to also go out on October 11th at the same time. So I'm opting to drop my cell phone, which will be off, into a Faraday bag and putting it somewhere safe in the house, and probably going to unplug Wi-Fi and other things and spend the day high vibe, hopefully out in nature, or doing something that is a little bit more positive, because I'm not crazy about this degree dealing with video surveillance. And, you know, call me crazy, but weirder things have happened in recent years. And yeah, something about this just doesn't seem right. This might be the first time you're hearing about it. I'm not saying this to be an alarmist. Go and do your research, take a look at this. I'm curious because from what I understand, the frequencies are also different. So it appears that it's going to be similar almost like to that of an Amber Alert, but a higher frequency and a higher pitch. We know that that can be something that can have effects on the human body. If you guys don't believe me, there's all kinds of information out on the internet about frequencies that can come through cell phones. And I will leave it at that. So my takeaways, watch out for karmic relationship themes that are coming up with this conjunction throughout the next couple of weeks. Do your best to be mindful of passive-aggressive tendencies and trying to find the balance in being assertive or being complacent. Watch for conflict avoidance, because there can be a sense of wanting to avoid conflict or confrontation when in reality it can actually be a good thing and it can give you the opportunity to air out some issues. Yes, it's going to be a balancing act. Yes, we are going to be looking at past life relationship issues. But in the end, this is a really important time to be learning how to assert ourselves and release old patterns so we can get to where it is that we want to go. I am hopeful that this is going to be positive and helpful for you guys, giving you guys the tools to navigate and also better understand what's going on with some of these wackadoo transits. As always, I really appreciate your guys' likes, shares, comments, and subscriptions. It's really helpful. If you guys drop me a comment, especially if you're watching for the first time, let me know where you're tuning in from. Give me a thumbs up and let me know, how are you guys feeling with these transits, especially if you happen to be like an Aries or a Scorpio rising. Maybe you have planets in these degrees in Libra. I myself am a Libra rising. I'm having this actually right in opposition to my moon. So I'm ready for it. I'm getting ready to put on all of my armor because I'm expecting the Mars attacks, you know? I'll be back here on Thursday. We're going to be doing horoscopes for October. I can't believe it's already October. So I hope that you guys join me. And as always, thank you guys so much for your support. Enjoy the rest of your week, and I'll see you here on Thursday. Take care.